guys, this is the Fat Panda, and I am here to bring you the Week 6 Power Rankings. It was a fairly uneventful week battle-wise. Most battles went more or less how I imagined people would predict them to go. Nonetheless, there were actually several trades made, and a few changes in the Power Rankings. A couple drops, a couple rises, and we'll go over those as we get to them. To start off with, though, we will hit number 1. Melbourne Lucarios hanging on solidly to the commanding number 1 slot. Still hasn't lost a single game this entire season, and just showed it off again, completely and utterly dominating his opponent, Tampa Bay. Not even dropping a single Mon in the match, and not even bringing his S-tier Dracovish to help clean up a break. It was just absolutely dominating, and shows why I continue to think he's easily the strongest team, at least right now. At number 2, we still have the Minnesota Lycanrocs picking up yet another win this week against the Tennessee Red Gyarados. Mamoswine cleaning up quite well after he was able to take advantage of a few misplays and take the match in the end. At number 3, we have the Boston Red Sox also picking up a win. As you're going to see a trend here, most of the top teams won their match this week. Most of the bottom teams lost their match. That's just kind of how this week essentially went. Boston showed some really strong prep in his match against the Gladiators. It was bringing T-Spikes against a team that couldn't remove them in any fashion, and bringing Eldegoss, which actually managed to show just the reason it was drafted as a surprisingly good bulky spinner that was able to basically just stall out as much of the match as possible and watch the opponents slowly get drained of their health via toxic spikes and the leech seed as well. And once the rest of the team was pretty darn weak, and all it took was Duraludon into G-Max and clean up the last few KOs, and that's all she wrote for that match. At number 4, we have Farmland Farfetch'd, who, just like the previous 3, also won his match the previous week. The team itself, as tanky as it is, absolutely showed how tanky it is. There was just... looked like he was under essentially no pressure the entire match because his opponent didn't have nearly the offense to break through Toxapex and Mudsdale, and there really was nothing else to say about that. It was just another one of those kind of stomps. At number 5, rising up in the rankings with a victory this week, is Seattle Serperior, just showing how strong a pure sun team can be. It was pretty good prep. I mean, it's hard to say it's bad prep when you bring sun against a hail team, but in the end, I don't know if it was Scarf Diggersby or just a slow Mew, but Scarf Diggersby cleaning up the match after something like Charizard was able to break through. Doublade showed itself to be quite strong this week with Sacred Sword, which is able to interrupt things both like Curse, Snorlax, and also was able to deal... well, it wasn't able to deal with Scrafty bulk up, but it showed a good prep idea at least. And overall, the Sun team led by Seattle is really kind of picking up my attention, and I think the past couple weeks are showing just how strong it can be, taking out Tennessee and then cleaning up Rochester this week. It was a very good play by her. At number 6, we have the Warsaw Rapidash holding steady. This week it was all about G-Max Toxtricity. G-Max Toxtricity is one of the more interesting ones because as a Mon, it absolutely loves running a Choice Scarf. It's got really strong attacks and kind of middling speed. But with G-Max available, it showed how truly terrifying Scarf G-Maxes can be. when Toxtricity is able to use something like Max Ooze to boost his offenses before it even locks into a actual attack with the Scarf. And then once you're at +2 or +3, you turn back to normal and you just pick whatever move the rest of the team is least resistant to, and it cleans from there. And it's exactly what happened when Toxtricity ended up picking up 5 KOs. Funnily enough, Warsaw also decided this was the week he wanted to get rid of Toxtricity for G-Max Alchemy of all things. I have absolutely no idea why this trade was made on his part. I think his trade partner, Bolton Boldores, absolutely just fleeced the hell out of him. Toxtricity is really, really good as a G-Max. It just, even this week it showed absolutely why it should be something that's on every coach's radar. Alchemy is a beautiful G-Max. It has some decent use, but overall it's nowhere near as strong as Toxtricity is. And I don't even think it fits nearly as well on the team. So a little bit confusing for me to see this trade, and I don't really like it. It's kind of why Seattle ended up jumping over him instead of Warsaw being 5 like he would be if he just hadn't made this trade. But maybe he'll prove me wrong, and he'll show that Alchemy has been completely underused this season and that it was a good trade in the end. At number 7, we have a hot riser, the Atlanta Beedrills, up to number 7 now. This week, he did exactly what I was hoping he would, and he managed to absolutely just rip through his opponent without bringing either the Grimmsnarl or the Togekiss. It's like he heard this video last week and he saw it as a challenge, because those two had done 95% of the work so far this season, and he still managed to get a nice, solid win without using either of them whatsoever. Kingler showing off that it's certainly got some power. Would have probably been able to pick up 2 or 3 kills if on turn 1 it had just hit that Max Knuckle instead of going for an agility first, because then Lucario was able to clean it up, which it wouldn't necessarily been able to do if that hadn't been the case. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked at calcs and I don't know their spreads and stuff, but I think it probably wouldn't have been able to get a little bit more than it did in the end. But regardless, it was still fairly strong, balanced play from Atlanta without his 2 MVPs, and those are really encouraging signs to see this coach going forward. At number 8, holding steady, we have the Vegas Golden Magnemites, who did lose this week. Really, he just didn't have a strong way to break through Vileplume outside of his Hatterini. And Vileplume was carrying Sludge Bomb, which made switching Hatterini in at any point a truly risky proposition. And in the end, most of his team was chipped, hurt, KO'd, or status before the Vileplume actually went down. And from then on, his team was just kind of cleaned up by G-Max Copperajah, and there really wasn't anything he could do to stop it at that point. At number 9, and seemingly in free fall, are the Tennessee Red Gyarados, who have now dropped 3 matches in a row, and showing by the trades he is looking desperately for something to help stem the bleeding, because it has been looking very bad the past few weeks. Pair of trades, Hexerus for Cloyster. I think overall Cloyster is going to do more work than Hexerus, so this is certainly a decent trade. Technically, Cloyster has some fun defensive options as well. Not running Scale Smash, but running things like Spikes or Rapid Spin or Teleport. With support from Umbreon is a little iffy because they're both weak to fighting, but he's done quite a few things to try and cover that weakness. So it could be a possibility. I think Cloyster is overall going to do more than Hexerus would have. In the second half, we have Steelix for Gallade, which is typing-wise and role on the team-wise, probably a good trade. Steelix was just nearly impossible to bring any weeks because of how much it overlapped with Melmetal, and Melmetal is almost always going to be the one you'd want to bring. But the problem with dropping Steelix and picking up Cloyster and Gallade is that he has now completely given up on running Stealth Rocks this season. I mean, he's got trades left, but it's going to be hard to see him use a trade to pick up anything that's going to run Stealth Rocks. And while they've certainly lost utility this generation with heavy-duty boots and hazards aren't nearly run as much as they are in draft leagues as they are in like ladder play. Not having the option at all and only having the option for spikes and T-spikes really hurts his options and really opens up interesting avenues of play for opponents when they prep against him, such as Sash Flyers are now significantly more viable than they've ever been before. And I don't think losing Rocks entirely was a good play, but also I don't necessarily think his opponents were ever planning for Steelix to come in the first place. And even if they were, prepping for Steelix is basically the exact same thing you do to prep for Melmetal. So I feel like he should have picked up a rocker somewhere since he was losing his only one, but I don't think keeping Steelix was the right play, so it's a bit of a pickle. At number 10, holding steady, we have the Sacramento Kingler, who have managed to get a pretty good victory, but it's just so hard to find room to move coaches above him when they're all winning as well. So, unfortunately for him, no movement this week, but the play of Vileplume and the cleanup with the G-Max Caparajah, like I mentioned before, showed some really good prep and some really good play by him. If he rallies another win or two together, he's certainly going to rise in the rankings back up into the top half, the playoff contenders as they are. Made one trade this week. I think it's a great trade. Clefairy is dead weight all the time. It's just terrible. Lipard is significantly stronger. It's fast. It's got Prankster. It can hit fairly hard with stab foul play. It's just got a lot of fun options, and we'll be able to support the team a lot better than I think Clefairy ever would. At number 11, we have the Toronto Torterras. Dropping this week a match, but really it was 99% on a roll as it was. Lucario took a hit and was literally 1% off from being able to clean the rest of the team without dying to Life Orb. Or at least it would have died to Life Orb on the last turn, but the way it works is he would have won. But it was at 30% exactly and had 4 mons left. So unfortunately it did get knocked out and he lost the match. But he showed some really good play up to that point and some really good prep. The Life Orb SD Lucario just was absolutely tearing through his opponent's team and was just that close to getting a victory this week. Down to number 12, we have the Gladiators, just absolutely blown back by Toxic Spikes and Eldegoss. Would have been able to handle it, but he essentially lost his only real answer in Ninetales right away. And from that point on, there was nothing he could do. He didn't have nearly the offensive mons to break through it. And just kind of fell to pieces after that. At number 13, we have the Rochester Raboots, who did also drop their match this week. Brought a Hail team with Ninetales. Kind of can combat hard Sun teams, but when you're weak to the Sun, even if you're overriding it, it doesn't really help. And beyond that, he certainly wasn't prepared for the absolutely overwhelming pressure that Charizard and Darmanitan were able to bring. And even though he more or less dealt with them, Diggersby was still able to clean up in the end. And he just didn't have he didn't have ways to deal with the damage they were dealing or outpace the offense. And just got, unfortunately, taken down there. At number 14, we have the Tampa Bay Toxtricity getting blanked this week in a loss, not getting a single KO. I saw during the battle he said he took about 10 minutes to prep before the battle, and, well, it showed. It was not good prep, and he just got completely blown apart. Hopefully he can put a little bit more effort into future matches this week, or for this week and the rest of the season. At number 15, despite not winning last week and, to be honest, getting just absolutely destroyed by the Farmland Farfetch'd, I do have Bolton Boldores rising up to number 15, and that's mostly due to the trades that he's made. You could see he blew most of the rest of his trades for the season to try and fix the team a little bit, and I really like where he's going with this. Trading Rotom for Togetic is probably the most questionable thing, but he's losing 2 kind of fat, bulky mons, and he does need to pick something up somewhere to help, give himself some sort of checks and answers to various mons. So I think Togetic is probably one of the better options that were left. I do expect Rotom to be traded for before the trade deadline, though, as with access to Nasty Plot and its higher speeds here than the other Rodoms, Electric Ghost coverage is actually pretty good, and I think it definitely has a place on the team. Or on a team. It just doesn't have necessarily a great place on this team anymore. He finally dropped Pyukumuku. I love Pyukumuku as a Pokemon, but holy crap, do I hate it in Draft League especially. It's just so beyond easy to prep for, and just brain dead to play against. Picking up something like Golisopod, which is in the same tier, is an absolute steal. Golisopod adds a lot of elements to this team that I think they were missing. Strong offensive water types are always good. Having priority with both First Impression and I want to say Sucker Punch. No, it's Aqua Jet. It's Aqua Jet that it has. Really give him some good ways to kind of deal with the faster, frail mons that are going to give things like his Excadrill trouble. And then I think the steal of the week is dropping that Gmax Alchemy for Gmax Toxtricity. I think Gmax Toxtricity is probably one of the more underrated Gmaxes right now. And seeing it go for basically nothing is an amazing steal and really brings some excellent power to this team. If he can pick up a win or two, I know his schedule is pretty rough, but it'll really showcase why I think the trades made his team significantly stronger. Falling down to number 16 are the Hekseville Honchkrows, who have had a couple rough matches in a row now, against good opponents nonetheless, but he's still not really showing anything too interesting in battles, and this week it was simply losing to the Scarf Gmax Toxtricity. He had absolutely no way to deal with it once it got a couple max oozes off and rose its stats up and just got blown apart from there. Trade deadline is the end of you have 2 more weeks to make trades, and hopefully Hekseville, if they haven't completely given up on the season, will try to make some trades, because if he makes some trades, makes his team a little more threatening, wins out 7-5. 7-5 is usually high enough to get into the playoffs, so it's definitely not out of the question that he could make it. I've seen crazier win streaks before, so if he can find something, maybe make his team a little bit better, or something to help his prep, he definitely is still not out of the race yet. Here we have the quick breakdown for you guys. Some seasonal MVPs. You can see it's still a close race in the top in general. Simply, you can tell simply because 2 of the 3 are completely new. And the 2 that dropped only dropped because they didn't show up last week. They weren't even used at all. So definitely a lot of mons still hanging around in that 8 to 7 range. So a lot of competition to get the MVP here. And it's nice to see Tox Specs on the top. I know most people hate it. I said it last week. I love the Tox Specs is there. It's great. You guys too. You are all great. So you should stay great. I will see you all next week.